Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Rosh Hashanah. We are up to Perek Gimel, Mishnah Daled. Today's Mishnayot should be Leiru Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Aranbayev, Neriyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Menuchatam Began Eden, Amen, and Avdi ben Chaim Lechaim, the Refuah Shlema, Bacha bat Esther, and Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, Betor Shah Chulei Israel. A shofar is also sounded on communal fast days. When a community faces tragedy, it is biblically obligated to pray and to blow two silver trumpets, as the Torah says in Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 10, Pasuk 9. Blowing trumpets brings people to repentance by stirring their hearts, making them realize that the tragedy came about as a result of their deeds. As the Rambam writes in Ilchot Ta'aniyot, chapter 1, Halachot 1 and 2. There is also a biblical obligation to observe days of fasting and prayer on these occasions, as the Rambam writes there in chapter 1, Halakha 4. Now the types of tragedies that require these measures are listed in Masechet Ta'anit, chapter 1, Mishnayot 5 through 7, and chapter 3, Mishnayot 1 through 7. And the sages decreed that in the temple, two shofars must be blown together with the trumpets. The rabbinic obligation to blow the shofar on fast days is based on the same verse in Tehillim, chapter 98, Pasuk 6, as the rabbinic obligation to blow trumpets of Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, the mitzvah of shofar is biblical, and the mitzvah of trumpets is rabbinic, while on fast days, the reverse is true. The mitzvah of trumpets is biblical, and the mitzvah of shofar is rabbinic. The Mishnah teaches which type of shofar is used for this purpose, and how the procedure is performed. The Mishnah begins, B'ta'aniyot b'shel zicharim kifufin. The shofars used on fast days in the temple should be the horns of male sheep, which are curved. It is not necessary to use the horn of a male sheep or ram. One may use any horn provided it is curved like those of a ram and not straight. The Ramban explains that the Tana mentions the ram only as an example of an animal with curved horns. Now, a curved horn emphasizes a submission and humility a person should feel during prayer, as the Gemara explains on Bish 26b in Masechet Rosh Hashanah. Upien mitzupeh chesef, and their mouthpieces should be plated with silver. Now, although the Rosh Hashanah shofar was plated with gold, as stated in the previous Mishnah, the shofars used on fast days were plated with silver. The reason is that on fast days, the shofars served the same purpose as the trumpets, namely to gather the people. Therefore, since the trumpets had to be made of silver, as stated in the Torah, the sages required the shofar to be silver as well, as the Gemara explains in its first answer on page 27a in Masechet Rosh Hashanah. Ushtei chatzotzrot ba'emtza, and they should have two trumpets in the center, meaning the two people blowing the shofars stand at the sides of two people blowing the trumpets. Shofar mikatzer v'chatzotzrot ma'arichot. They start blowing the shofar and trumpets at the same time, but the blast of each shofar is short and the blast of the trumpets are long, so the trumpets are heard by themselves after the shofar blasts have ended. Shemitzvat hayom b'chatzotzrot, because the main mitzvah of the day is to blow the trumpets, and that is the end of Mishnah Daled. Mishnah continues, the Torah commands that we blow the shofar on the Yom Kippur of Yovel, the Jubilee year. The Yovel year occurs every 50 years, immediately following 7 cycles of 7 Shemitah years. Its laws are similar to those of Shemitah in that the land of Eretz Yisrael may not be worked, and produce must be made accessible to the public. During Yovel, Jewish slaves must be set free, and ancestral lands that had been sold during the previous 49 years must be returned to their original owners. On the Yom Kippur of Yovel, there is an obligation for the Beit Din and then every Jew to blow the shofar. The Mishnah details the requirements for this shofar. Shaveh Yovel liRosh Hashanah letkiah v'labrachot. The laws of Yovel are the same as the laws of Rosh Hashanah with respect to blowing the shofar. That is, a straight horn should be used on both occasions. As taught in Mishnah 3, we use a straight horn on Rosh Hashanah, although the reason for this does not apply to the Yovel shofar, which is used to proclaim the release of slaves and the return of fields. An analogy is drawn between them, which teaches that the same type of shofar is required on both occasions. And with respect to the blessings, that is, the Yom Kippur Musaf of Yovel contains the same 9 blessings as the Rosh Hashanah Musaf of every year. These 9 blessings are listed below in chapter 4, Mishnah 5. However, the passages specific to Rosh Hashanah are not recited on Yom Kippur, as the Gemara explains on page 27a in Masechet Rosh Hashanah. The next Tana disagrees. In his view, the Yovel shofar is not the same as the Rosh Hashanah shofar. Rabbi Yehuda says, the Rosh Hashanah tokin b'shel zecharim. On Rosh Hashanah we blow the horns of a male sheep, which the commentaries add, which are curved. Ubayovel b'shel ye'elim. And on Yovel years we blow the horns of wild goats, which are straight. Now Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the Tana of Mishnah 3, who holds that in Rosh Hashanah we use a straight shofar. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a curved shofar is used because Rabbi Yehuda argues with the Tana of Mishnah 3, who holds that in Rosh Hashanah we use a straight shofar. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a curved shofar is used because it represents humility, which is a trait one should exhibit when praying on the Day of Judgment. Now, like we said, on Yovel years, Rabbi Yehuda says we blow the horns of wild goats, which are straight. Both the first Tana and Rabbi Yehuda require a straight shofar for Yovel, but the reasons are different. According to the first Tana, it must be straight because it has to resemble the Rosh Hashanah shofar. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it must be straight because it proclaims freedom for slaves, and a straight shofar is a symbol of freedom. Now here, as in Mishnayot 3 and 4, the types of animals are mentioned only as examples to show which shape the shofar should have. And the Rav does tell us, Ve'en halakha ki Rabbi Yehuda ve'lo ki Tana Kama. The halakha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda, nor does it follow the Tana Kama. Ela halakha, rather what's the halakha? Ben Rosh Hashanah, ben Yom HaKippurim shel Yovel, whether it's Rosh Hashanah, whether it's Yom Kippur of Yovel, shneim b'shel zecharim kifufim. Both of them, we blow the horns of male sheep, which are curved, which is unlike the Tana Kama and unlike the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Again, both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that is on Yovel year, we blow with the horns of a male sheep, which are curved. And that is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.